Today, we're going to be talking on my channel about being a parent in a mixed faith marriage and the struggles that come with that and how we handled it. Hello, my great and spacious world. Look who I have with me. It's Rachael. Rachel's from Post-Mormon Parenting, and she has her own YouTube channel. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
I'm so excited. So let's turn the time over to Rachael. Rachael, tell us how you found yourself in a mixed faith marriage.
Oh my gosh, what a fun time. Thank you so much, Stephanie. So my husband was doing online school, finishing up his bachelor's, and for years, like when you're going to school part-time and like working and supporting a family, it takes a long time. So during that time, some of our cousins had left the church and they were like, hey, we're totally open to talking about it. And we were like, that's cool. We don't want this to be a taboo topic. Like, let's chat. And I was thinking inside, there's got to be some kind of thing that they just don't understand. Like, I can explain it. I know a lot about church history and church doctrine. I can
That's
say
dangerous.
this, right? So, and I wasn't afraid, I was like, I've read some anti-Mormon stuff. Like, I know a thing or two. So we talked and they sent us a CES letter. And I was like, what is this stuff? I'm sure there's an answer for everything. And I found Fair Mormon and I was like, see, an answer for everything.
We're fine.
And my husband was like studying at school at the time. He was like, I don't have time for this. I was like, I got this, honey. I found all the answers. Everything's fine. We're good. Check, done. So fast forward a few years, so like I literally read the whole CES letter and was like, this is fine. I know, right? Oh my gosh. So fast forward a few years and he's getting ready to graduate and he tells me, Rachael, there's just some stuff that I got to know and I'm going to start reading some books. I really want to get into church history stuff. I feel like there's some stuff out there that I really need to know. And I'm just going to go wherever the truth takes me. And I was like, no, don't do that. You know this Satan's going to get you that way. Please don't do this. Anyway, fast forward several months and he's been reading. And I was like, but read your scriptures too. For every non-church book, you should read a church book as well, and like shore up your testimony so you can be in tune with the Spirit and be able to discern like what's lies and what's truth and what's misrepresentation and stuff like that, so you won't be deceived, right? He didn't, much to my dismay. And for the first time in our entire marriage, our entire 12 years, we fought. Like, he wasn't yelling. I was yelling. I was extremely emotional about this. And as anyone in a mixed faith marriage can tell you, like, this is life or death stuff. This is, you don't take this lightly. So that was our first fight ever, was me freaking out that he's reading all this anti-Mormon literature and losing his testimony, right? And not doing all the things that he should be doing to shore up his testimony. And me feeling like I had to carry the whole burden of bringing our family to salvation, right? And I had to like be even more of a believer now and dig in my heels and study the scriptures and go to the temple like I've never done before, and I was talking with the bishop and be like, look, this is happening. You need to help us out and like minister to him, Anyway, so fast forward several months and he was like totally out. Decided to have his name removed from the records. I was a basket case. But then we were listening to some talks, like, because I didn't want this to be a taboo topic. I don't want there to be stuff that we can talk about. And he was listening to something called Radio Free Mormon. And I was like, well, I want to know what you're listening to. I want to hear what garbage they're talking about. And I started listening with him. And I ended up like, he fell asleep. I was up all night, like binging on this stuff. And about 24 to 36 hours later, I was like out and I see it now. None of this is true. None of this is real. And so then like, that's my faith transition. So long story in a nutshell.
That's how
where we
you
were.
got into a mixed faith marriage.
Right.
And how you got into a faith transition.
Yes. Yep.
Shout out to your cat. What's your cat's name?
That is Sorsha.
Mm-hmm.
Extra points if anyone can name the movie where that super nerdy name is from.
Ooh, a super nerdy name. You hear that, guys? That's a challenge. Go down to the comments.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my audience already knows the story of my mixed faith marriage. So I'll give it to you in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
My best friend came and told me that she was leaving the church, and I handled it really well. I'm like, good. I felt so good about it. I'm like, she feels loved. She feels validated. I'm a good friend.
Mm-hmm.
So my husband comes home, and I'm relating this experience to him, and I tell him how it went. He's excited about how well it went. And he tells me that he's also going to leave the church. And I did not take that.
Just what you need. Oh.
Yeah. And I felt bad because I wanted to offer the same space to my husband that I had to my friend. But let's be honest, there's a difference between having a friend that you see occasionally during the week and it being your husband who you're raising children with. And yeah.
Yes. And all the things, right? Like now you're not going to have a priesthood holder in your home. Now you're not going to have someone to bless your kids. Now there's not going to be someone to baptize and do all the other ordinances for your own children. Yeah.
And I remember my biggest concern was like, are we even in like a committed marriage anymore?
Oh, yeah.
Based on covenants that you don't believe in?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So,
and so you were in that kind of space for how long did you say?
And so he left in August and then I left in October. The great hidden, I don't want to say blessing. That's such a triggering word. The hidden positive thread in here was that I was able to talk to my best friend because I knew that she wouldn't judge him because he's in the same spot as him. And then I felt comfortable talking to her about it because she loves me. Yeah. So, I talked to her so much for those 2 months. And
I bet. Oh my gosh, that must have been so helpful. Sorry to interrupt you. That must have been so good because that's like the number one thing when you're going through a faith transition or someone that you love is like, who is there to talk to about it? I mean, church is for faith promoting things. That's what church is for. Even extracurricular church activities are for faith promoting things, right? We don't want to do anything that's going to erode the testimony of another person. And so talking about these kinds of topics are like, ooh, that's tricky stuff. That's not something you can just go around talking to anybody about. And you definitely don't want to out someone who's not ready to be out to the word either. Yeah. So
and
I'm so glad you had someone to talk to.
Yeah, especially your husband. Like you want him to be able to handle it the way he wants to handle it. I did not handle that so well. Are we giving examples of bad ways we handle?
We're gonna get to the good stuff. And before we go into like the specific struggles and how we handled those, I do want to give a shout out to an amazing support group that I found pretty much right away. Someone had mentioned that there's this podcast called Marriage on a Tightrope. Have you ever heard of it? Yes.
I went there too.
I love it. So as soon as I found myself in a mixed faith marriage, I started binging all of their episodes and I was like, this is amazing. I was like crying tears, like somebody gets it. Someone gets it. And they're talking about all these things that I need to know about right now, addressing lots of pitfalls that I could then avoid. Like, I get to learn from other people's examples and not have to stumble like that myself. So woohoo for that. Katie and Alan Mount are so kind and so generous with their time and such amazing people and amazing friends and just have done a huge amount of work that really needed to be done. So props to them for that.
Yes.
I found a group of ladies in my local area also who are also listeners of the podcast. And the four of us have been having lunch together like once a month ever since then, which has been amazing. Yeah. So it's so important to have somebody to talk to, someone to have like your support system, someone that can validate and get what you're going through and why. So awesome.
Yes,
Awesome.
I agree. And Katie was so right. There really just isn't that much support in the church system for people in our situation. And we need that support. So I'm so glad that she took initiative and started gathering people. And, you know, in a group, there's lots of creative ideas. We're talking about how each of us do things and learning from other people's experiences. So that's great. In fact, that was one of my biggest struggles going into my mixed faith marriage, was that I wasn't getting support from my church group like I thought I would, you know? So I went in there and I was like, I need help. I need support. But they were so much more worried about reactivating John, not losing me, not losing the kids. I think the whole making a safe place for me was overlooked in the process.
Yeah. It's so hard for them too to like be able to put themselves in your shoes, you know, and see exactly what you would need and how much of a grieving process it would be for you. So that is really rough. The day after my husband told me that he was going to have his name removed from the records, I was obviously a basket case, and he said, you need to go talk to someone. You should go talk to one of your friends. And he gave me a list of good ideas, and was like, maybe your friend here, or this friend, or this friend. Just go talk to someone and have a shoulder to cry on. And that was one of the best things that he could have said or done, because it gave me that permission to talk about what was going on and to out him to somebody that I trusted, somebody that I knew that I could have a shoulder to cry on, basically. So I dropped off my son to kindergarten in the morning. I had my other two little ones with me, and they just like played in the front room of this friend's house. Thank goodness she was available that morning, because I really, really needed someone. And she had some friends who had left the church just a few months prior. And so she got it, it was like close to home, and she understood my grief. And I just like could not have been more devastated at this time. So I was just like hot tears, ugly crying on her couch. And she just held me, and we just like sobbed together. Like she sobbed, I sobbed. It was this big wet mess. And just like being able to cry in her arms was so therapeutic, so extremely cathartic, that I left feeling like I cried out all the tears that I needed to cry, and I didn't actually feel so bad anymore. That was like the most magical experience I think I've ever had. I felt so much better afterward. It was really, really awesome. So.
Yeah, me and my friend, she picked me up. We went on a drive. We got ice cream and just drove and drove and drove while I ugly cried, like the snot cry.
Yeah. Yup. Yeah. I remember thinking at one point, like, could I be any more sad? Like, if he had died, would I be more sad than I am right now? And I actually had to think about that for a minute, which, how sad is that? I mean, now it seems so silly.
Yes.
But at the time, it was just like, I don't know if it would have been more sad that he had died or not. I think I eventually came to the conclusion that no, it would be more sad if he died. Yeah. But yeah, that's just, anyone going through that will tell you, like, that's how extreme this is. That's how severe this is when your spouse stops believing. Definitely.
I agree. Yeah. And then another one of the problems that came up pretty quickly is he, of course, invited me to leave with him because,
that's very kind of him. What a nice invitation.
he thought maybe I would come to the same conclusion as him after hearing his spiel. But no, I was not ready to leave with him. So I decided, I'm going to church. You're not going to church. And that was our first big, okay, how are we going to handle this with the kids, right? And I'm so glad that we always raised our kids to be respectful of people that live their lives differently than us, because we do have family that isn't in the church, and our kids would often wonder why they didn't go to church. And we would always be like, some people choose to go to church, some people don't. They're still good people. So Thank heavens we had that to land on. I remember sitting our kids down and being like, hey, remember that talk we had about how there's good people in the church and good people that aren't in the church? Okay, well, dad has decided to be a good person not in the church, and mom's decided to be a good person in the church. And we expect you to try and be good people wherever you fall.
Wow. And so did you give them a choice? Did you say you get to come to church with mom or you can stay home with dad? Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah. So during that short time when we were mixed faith, we tried lots of different things to try and see which one we liked best. So we did try you can choose. And of course, everyone chose to stay home. And then as I'm leaving to go to church, they all feel bad because mom's alone, because I have genuinely kind children. So one of them would be like, oh, I'll go with mom this week. You go next week. You know?
Oh, it just melts my heart. How sweet. And tell me how old your kids were at this time.
Okay, so when we went through this, let's see, my oldest was 9 and my second was 8, and we had just baptized him the month before.
Oh, wow.
And I was getting a feeling like something was changing. The tides were changing.
Oh,
and then my third child was 6 and my youngest was 4.
Okay, so 9, 8, 6, and 4. And you just have these little angels with hearts of gold who are like, oh, we feel so bad for you, mommy. We love you so much. We'll sacrifice this home fun time with dad to go with you to boring church.
Yes. So then we also tried the 1 week you go with mom, the other week you stay with dad. Okay, and then this became hard for me because I realized I was going, like, I had conflict in the church, right? And I realized if my kids ever had conflict, they were going to go to John and not me, because they see me as like 100% believing. And, you know, I don't think anyone's 100% believing. I think we're all just like trying to do our best, you know?
Yeah.
And anyway, that gave me a lot of turmoil because I was like, I don't like this role that I'm being pitted in. I want my kids to see me as open-minded and loving, and that was difficult. And then we also were shooting around the idea of having John come to church with us, and then me staying home the next week, so that wherever we were together as a family.
Yeah.
But he didn't feel good about that. And I didn't want to push him into doing something that he didn't feel right about.
He was done going at that point. Like, he didn't want to be there.
Okay. Yeah. And I 100% understood why. I always respected his choice. Like, I wanted him to make the choice himself. I didn't want him to do anything just for me. I wanted him to do it for himself. The struggle I had was, what am I supposed to do? Yeah, that was my struggle.
Yeah.
So we ended up not trying that third option. What about you guys?
So since my kids were so little at the time, they were 5, 4, and 1. Wait a second. 2. Yeah, 5, 4, and 2. And it was like such a hassle to get them ready for church and to get them to sit through sacrament meeting. And then the older ones didn't really like being in primary. So they would have us parents like stand in the back for half of primary till they felt safe and comfortable enough for us to sneak out and to go to our own class. But then my nursery age one, I also didn't feel super comfortable being in nursery without a parent. Our kids have like separation anxiety. So then it was like, why am I here? Like, why do I even bring kids here? If there's not 2 parents that at least we can like divide and conquer. Yeah. That it was a little too difficult for one parent. And we had, so I tried for a few weeks going just to me and the kids, and my husband, who's also named John, went sometimes with us, but that got old really fast because I could see like how irritated he was getting, and totally justified too. Like I never was upset that he was getting irritated at stuff. I heard stuff from the pulpit too with new ears as well, thinking like, oh, this is
Yes.
just stop talking, please. And then he'd like be angry at home and have to recover. And it's like, this is not good for anybody. So you stay home, I'll go with the kids. And we had some great young women helpers and other moms who would like sit with me and the kids, and my kids thought that was fun. But again, like I wasn't really hearing a lot of what was happening in sacrament meeting. And then in class, they wanted me to be with them. So I was like, this is not working. So I let the older two kids just stay at home. And I also realized that my husband was working long hours during the week. They only had Saturday and Sunday with him. It wasn't really fair for me to drag them to this thing that they didn't even want to go to in the first place, and that none of us were really getting anything out of. And for what, you know? And they could be spending quality time with their dad, of which they had precious little to begin with. So it just made a lot more sense to let them stay at home. The 2-year-old was kind of attached to my hip, and so she would come where she wants to go wherever I go, to the bathroom including, you know. So we did that for a while, and yeah, I was just like a church widow, I guess you would say, you know, with my little 2-year-old on my hip. And if she didn't want to go to nursery, I would just take her with me to Relief Society. I actually really liked Relief Society. Like we had a really great conversations, great lessons, and I felt like I could speak up and be vulnerable and open with people there, and they could too. So I felt like we had this kind of unique ward that we could do that in, where I know that's like not super common across the board. So
yeah,
nice. Yeah.
What other problems did you run into in a mixed faith marriage?
So one of the problems was trying not to let the kids hear our arguments. You know, there's a lot of heated discussions. There's a lot of emotions running very high. There's a lot at stake. You know, it's like your eternity, you know.
Salvation.
Yeah. And your whole like family history and your ancestors and everyone that's like counting on you to be the link in the chain, you know.
Not be the weak one.
Right, yeah. So having to talk out and negotiate the things, like my husband and I were always really great communicators since day one. So that was really, really helpful for us. But when you're trying to have those conversations, I feel like it's important to not have those around the kids, because it's one thing for the kids to see you resolving conflict together and having arguments, but it's another thing when you're yelling at each other and getting very angry with each other, and the kids feel scared. I never wanted them to feel scared. Like I wanted to be able to have my reaction and be able to be angry, but never to let my kids feel scared of that. Yeah. So that's something that we really had to negotiate. And that took a lot of self-restraint on my part to say, I need to shut up and not talk about this right now. And I need to wait for a better time. But when you're feeling really angry and upset about something, now seems like the perfect time to talk about it, right? Yeah. So that was something that I really had to focus on and work hard at. So that was a big struggle. What about for you guys? Did you have a hard time
I think we handled that struggle the same way. So we went on more dates. We'd bring in a babysitter and have these discussions even outside of the house.
That's so good.
And then even there was some, like after the kids went to bed, going into the garage and sitting in the truck with a baby monitor, you know.
That's so smart. Yeah. We should have done more of that.
But I don't know. I think my biggest thing was I wanted to resolve it privately. I didn't want our kids in the middle of it, because it really didn't have anything to do with the kids. It was his personal decision, my personal decision, you know. So
yeah, absolutely. Another struggle that we face with something like this, that kind of goes along with that, is making sure we're not putting emotional burdens on our children. Like, obviously, my husband works a day job and I'm the stay-at-home parent, if you haven't gathered that by now. So he would go off to work and I'd be at home, like reeling from the previous night's conversation and just feeling all the weight of this sadness and grief on me. And so I'd be like sitting on the floor, hugging my knees, hot tears coming down my face, and just like rocking myself. I am obviously not in any position to be taking care of 3 little kids. But my sweet little 4-year-old daughter, who just has a heart of gold, came over. She would like stroke my hair and scratch my back and say, there, mommy. It's okay. It's okay, mommy. You can cry. It's all right. It'll be okay. And she didn't know what I was crying about. But I just like, mommy's so sad. Mommy's so sad. Oh, there, mommy. It's okay. It was so sweet. It was such a beautiful, tender moment. And then at another time, my husband was crying in the shower after we had tucked in all our kids into bed. But my 6-year-old, he heard my husband crying in the shower, and he went to the pantry and he got this like container of cooked carrots and a stick of gum. And he wrote this note and like ripped out the paper so it'd be a heart shape for the note. And he wrote on it, "Dear Dad, I love you. I got you a snack and some gum for dessert. Love." And then he signed his name and like drew little hearts around it. And this is my like total stereotypical boy, like just doesn't have time for frilly feeling stuff, even though like I really try hard to make sure he's emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
But for him to draw little hearts on this was so sweet and so tender. And so these were amazing, beautiful moments. But I also wanted to make sure that this was not the normal, that in no way did my kids feel like they were responsible for our emotions, that they were in charge of carrying the burden of our emotions for us, or being a shoulder to cry on for us. I really wanted to avoid that. No, I don't think any kid should have to be the caretaker for their parent, right? Like, we need to be the caretakers for them. If these moments happen where our kids get to contribute to us and they get to show love and empathy to us, those are beautiful moments, but they definitely should not be the norm. So that was another thing that was tricky. So what I did for that is I made sure that I had babysitters during the day, even if I didn't necessarily need a babysitter, like I wasn't going out anywhere. I just felt like I am emotionally unfit to take care of these children right now, and they deserve to be with someone who wants to be with them and who is capable of actually taking care of them. So I would call up my neighbor, who is an ex-mormon, and she knew what was happening, and she knew, like, you take care of you. I got the kids. Let me know when you want them back, Yeah. And that was just a huge lifesaver. And like a couple other times of babysitting. So that was one thing that I really recommend, like, get yourself a good babysitter. And even if you don't feel like you need one, take that time for yourself. Do your emotional processing, maybe without the kids around, let that happen when they're not there, to feel scared, like, oh my gosh, mom can't take care of me. What am I going to do?
Yeah. So I really resonate with what you're saying, but this didn't come for me until my faith transition. Leaving the church is where I found myself in this part. So I'll comment on that when we get to the faith transition. That's where I'm excited. Real emotional struggle was.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. So here's another one. Another big struggle of having a mixed faith marriage for parenting is not making your kids choose sides. Like, it would be easy to sneak in, like at bedtime, we each take turns with the kids. My husband will go in and then say goodnight, and then I'll go in and say goodnight. And it's really nice. It's lovely one-on-one time. But I wanted to make sure that they respected his decision to stop believing, or, his conclusion, his unbelief, whatever. And I respected it too. So I never wanted to be like, okay, now let's pray for daddy that he will come to his senses, and feel the Holy Ghost again or whatever. I think I actually did that one time. Now that I say that, I think I actually did that one time.
And then you realize
I'm so sorry.
that isn't what you wanted to do.
No, yeah.
Yeah, we don't expect you to be perfect, Rachel, but
Learn
yeah.
from my mistakes, everybody. Don't do that. Don't do that. But
Mhm.
after that, I really tried hard not to make them choose sides. Like, I was okay with his decision. I want to make sure the kids were okay with it too. I didn't want him talking to the kids, be like, listen, it's all nonsense. Mom still
Yeah.
believes in this nonsense, you know, so we want to make sure they don't have to choose sides. Like, everybody is good. You know, we just
Mhm.
believe different things. And we actually had an ex-Mormon couple friend that they left the church a few years before we did. Or say left the church. That's like a really loose term. I
Mhm.
prefer to say stop believing. They
Mhm.
stopped believing in it a few years before we did. So anyway, we would talk to them. We were still really good friends with them, even when we were active and believing. So that was cool. It was really fun that we could still maintain a really close friendship with them. And they are really good examples of that. They would tell us how they talk to their kids and say like, well, mommy believes this, daddy believes this, and you get to decide what you believe, you know?
Mhm.
And that was, I think, a really, really healthy and helpful way of going about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. We started doing that as well. We were like, some people, I mean, we didn't say mom believes this, dad believes that. We said some people believe this, some people
Mm-hmm.
believe that. This is what I think. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. What did you guys do about negotiating coffee and alcohol?
Oh
Was
yeah.
that an issue for you guys during your mixed
That
faith
was
time?
one of the biggest issues during our mixed faith marriage. I wasn't so afraid of coffee. I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, it's like glorified pop. You're already addicted to pop, so whatever.
Yeah, so true. So
But
true.
it was hard for one of my kids because he knew that we shouldn't be drinking coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And so we talked about like I let's be honest, in the church, Mormons don't even know why we don't drink coffee. It's more of like an obedience thing than
Yeah.
reason. So with the coffee, we talked about like benefits, cons, and how everyone's going to make their own choice. Now the alcohol, on the other hand, I had a really hard time with the alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably what we talked about most on our dates when we wanted to be away with the kids. I was just like, I mean, he was like trying to tell me like, it's okay. Like there are people that can responsibly handle this. Most people
Mm-hmm.
are responsible when they handle alcohol. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
but you can't deny that there's AA and drunk driving
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and domestic abuse because of alcohol. And how do we know that isn't going to
Right.
happen to us?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think we approached alcohol until I was more comfortable with it. I was just like, no, 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 no. And definitely never in our house, never when I'm around.
Yeah. Yeah. And did that stay, or did that decision evolve over time, over the
Yeah,
months?
it evolved over time. So
Yeah. Even before you stopped believing.
yeah, before I stopped believing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just realized it was important that he was able to make the final decision for himself.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also important that I was able to be heard and validate my concerns validated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you feel like he did a good job of that
Oh yeah,
at the
yeah.
time?
Well, I mean, now I think I was being kind of unreasonable since he is super responsible. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's what fear does to you, makes you a little unreasonable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I have yet to meet an active believing Mormon, like not myself, obviously not you, who didn't respond with a ton of fear, right? Because especially if you're born and raised in it, like this is all we know. All we know is that alcohol leads to really bad things. It's super addictive. We know those quotes from researchers that say this is the most dangerous drug out there because all these bad things happen because of it. So that's all we know. We know you're going to have a drink and then you're going to become an alcoholic and it's going to ruin our family and we'll have to get divorced and you'll never see the kids again. Is that what you want?
Yes.
That is almost literally verbatim the conversation that we had.
Rachel,
There's
get
a
out
lot
of
more
my head.
yelling.
Were you at
From
the
me.
restaurant when I was talking to John? Pretty sure that's what
My poor husband, like he was in tears, like so sad because for the first, maybe second time ever, I yelled at him.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I get why. I know I give myself grace for doing that and for having that reaction. And I still feel so bad though. Like that was traumatic for him to having his wife who never yells to yelling at him about this decision, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just completely invalidating. So that was a rough time. That was a really rough time.
And I'm interested to hear your ideas or even the viewers' ideas on how they approach alcohol with their kids, because I'm still at a loss about how I want to approach it. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to be fine with situations like this where I'm not sure what I want to do with my kids. I think I'm trying to be like, that's okay. Like you can't have all the answers today.
Yes. And I think that's a really great gift that we can give our kids. But I want to touch on that more later. Mm-hmm. What we've talked about with our kids is that this is a grown-up drink and we've had them smell it so they can smell like, oh, that is not something that I want to taste. That smells disgusting. And it's like, great, my work is done. No, but then we told them like this alcohol is a drink that grown-ups drink because it makes them feel good. That's it. That's why. But it is not okay for little bodies to have it. It's not good. It's not okay for your body. It's actually really not good for grownups, you know, but yes. They do it anyways. But then, you know, like cupcakes aren't good for you either, yes. Kids. And we still have those once in a while. We don't have cupcakes every day, do we? You know, so we approach it like that. Like this is just something that grownups do. It's not healthy, but it's okay once in a while. And no, you can't have any because your body's too small and it can't metabolize it correctly. So that's that. That's how we've approached that. We do, I don't know about you guys, but so mixed faith, right? Back when we were in that mixed faith time, I decided I really, really did not want this to be a taboo topic. I did not want this to become a secretive behavior. I didn't want us to not be able to talk about it. So I wanted to know, like, when are you going to do it? How many drinks are you going to have? Like, are you going to go drinking tonight while you're hanging out with so-and-so? And if so, how many? And when will you go home by? And stuff like that. And it wasn't necessarily to keep him accountable. Yeah. Like that wasn't the point. It was more so that like it's all out in the open, you know, because I knew that if it became a secretive thing or something that he felt like he needed to keep from me because I would react badly to it, then that's when problematic behavior could really take hold. So I also realized really quickly that I had to bite my tongue. Even if I thought it was disgusting, even if I thought it was immoral or a terrible choice, I really had to bite my tongue and not shame him. I could do it inside my head a little bit if I thought he wasn't looking, or vent to someone else afterward. But I really, really needed to be a safe person for him to talk to so that he could come talk to me and it could be out and open like that. Yes.
So yeah, I handled it similar. At first I just tried to convince him, like, don't do it. And when I saw that wasn't going to happen, and I did want him to have the last, like, and I did want him to have that choice, you know, I said something similar. I was like, I understand you're probably going to start drinking. I want you to talk to me about it. I want to know what your experience is. I want to know how it's going. I want you to feel comfortable talking to me about it. I don't want you to feel like you have to hide this from me because I've been so emotional about it. I was like, I'll be fine. Like I've said my piece. You've listened to me. You know where I where I fall with this, you know, my opinions. But I can handle it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was good for me too. I think it also helped me see that he was being responsible, which is what I really wanted. If we were going to go on this trip together, I wanted to know that he could be responsible.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's funny when he first said that he was going to do this, and I was like, well, let's set some boundaries. And he was thinking, how about like every 2 weeks I'll drink. So like no more frequently than 2 weeks. And when I do drink, it'll be like 2 drinks at a time. And I was like, that is so much drinking.
You're an alcoholic.
Why would you start out with that? That's terrible. And now, of course, I'm like, oh, that's, you know, that's nothing. But for a person who's never had a drop of alcohol in her life and whose husband hadn't either, like that seemed excessive.
I agree. So also when we found ourselves in a mixed faith marriage and we got to a point where we realized he's not coming back and I'm not leaving. We started to try and make plans like, what is our day-to-day life going to look like? Like, we're going to pray at home, but mom's going to call on the prayer and dad's not going to participate. You know, we tried to think of all these scenarios that we could find ourselves in. And we always think we've done it. We know exactly how we're going to handle every situation. Every situation that could come up, we've got it. And then I remember driving with our family to an outing, and Kaden goes, Mom, when is Scouts next? And I remember looking at John, and he's looking at me, and we're both like, what are we going to do about Scouts? We didn't talk about it. And we'd find ourselves in these situations, and we'd always have to be like, we'll get back to you on that, because we needed time to make sure that we were showing a united front moving forward, especially because everything was changing and evolving and confusing for the kids. We didn't want to add to their confusion by telling them different ways that we're going to handle these situations.
Good call.
Giving ourselves a space to be like, we'll tell you tonight after dinner.
Yeah. That's good. That's good to set an expectation of time for that. I didn't even think about that. More like, usually I just tell my kids, I'll get back to you eventually. But I think that's a really good idea. So they have a time to expect it by, you know?
Yeah, like we are going to answer your question. We're not just blowing you off.
Yeah.
But then also giving us time to be like, okay, what are all the pros and cons of Scouts? Where do you fall on it? Where do I fall on it? Where's the middle ground? Okay, you can go to Scouts.
And stuff like you never would have thought of before, right? Like if you're actively living Mormon, your kids are going to go to Scouts, right? Like they're going to do all the church programming stuff. You don't get to sit there and think, what are the pros and cons? Do I really want this? Is this really going to work for our family? So all those little things that come up just when you think you've got it, another negotiation has to come up and you think, oh man, this again, you know?
Yeah.
Nice.
I also want to lead us into our next video. So I remember thinking, let's see, when we were in our mixed faith marriage, I really thought that we could keep going to church and it would be a healthy, positive environment like it had always been. Because when you fit the mold, which we fit the mold so well, church works so well for you. And it can be a good and productive place to grow. And I thought I could keep doing that. But what I didn't realize is when you don't fit the mold, church becomes difficult. And I had never experienced that before. And I was starting to hear messages in church that did not support my situation, did not support my family, did not support my marriage. And I started to worry about these messages being put on my kids' shoulders by the church. This is where church started to become really difficult for me. Church became difficult for me before I started my faith crisis. Just being in the mixed faith marriage was already starting to give me a lot of conflict.
Yeah. Yeah, same for us too, because you start listening with new ears, right? And I even contacted a friend from like when I was in Young Women, who I remember her dad was never a member, but her mom and her other siblings were. And it was like for the first time ever, I thought, what would that be like for her? Like, how sad is that? That it didn't even occur to me what that must be like for her. And all of the flippant comments I must have made and insensitive comments I must have made, like, I don't even know, you know? So yeah, you start hearing things that you never heard before, that you never picked up on before, that just kind of church takes on a whole new meaning. Yeah, definitely.
I was also in primary. So for half of the primary, I was able to listen to what my kids were hearing. And every time something said, I'm like looking at my kids for the reactions. Thank heavens they're not even paying attention. It's just flying right over their head. So I was like, you know what? One day they're going to hear this. They're going to think about their dad and they're going to do one or two things. It's either going to give them conflict or they're going to start mistrusting their dad. And I just don't think that's fair.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
I remember a painful experience while I was in a mixed faith marriage was when they rolled out the new Come Follow Me stuff where we're studying at home with our kids, and the new like Achievement Day Scout, like we're getting rid of Scouts thing. And we were all together in the chapel and they were playing videos, and an apostle says, salvation is a personal matter and exaltation is a family matter. And I just remember like ugly crying in church, hoping that everyone thinks I'm feeling the Spirit, because that's not the truth. I'm not feeling the Spirit. I'm having a really hard time with this concept. And I'm like, I didn't want to feel like I was in charge of everyone's salvation. In my mixed faith marriage, I was put in the middle a lot. I felt like I was in between John and the church. I felt like I was in a tug of war between my husband and God. Everyone was putting my whole family salvation, my children, my husband, on my shoulders, and it was way too much for me to carry. Because I can't control these people, and people talk to me like I could control these people through manipulative measures into being worthy church members, and I just wasn't willing to go there.
Yeah. I can only imagine what it must feel like to be a dad in a mixed faith marriage and feel like, listen, dude, you're the patriarch of your home. You're the one who's supposed to be presiding. You're the one really who's responsible for getting your family through the gates and into the highest degree of celestial glory. And so I can only imagine how much more pressure would be on a dad in a mixed faith marriage.
Okay, so I think it's time that we hop on over to your channel, Rachel. On Rachel's channel, we're going to be talking about parenting through our faith transitions, all the struggles that come up parenting during a faith transition and how we handled it. So Rachel, thank you so much for coming on, talking about mixed faith marriage. It was a great discussion. Everyone, head down to the comments. Tell us what you thought, if you were in a mixed faith marriage, how you handled any of these situations or any struggles that you had that we didn't mention. And while you're down there, hit the like button, hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Do you want to say goodbye to my great and spacious world?
Thank you so much, my great and spacious world. It has been a pleasure. And thank you so much, Stephanie, for having me on today. I'm excited to see you over on my channel. Thank you.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.
We're going to be talking on my channel about being in a mixed faith parent. There's not a mixed faith parent. Okay, being a mixed faith parent. No.
I mean, I guess if your kids are like a different faith than you, it's like mixed faith parenting.
That's true. Today on my channel, we're going to be talking about